Welcome into the Bobby Carver Show with my guy, Mr. Anthony Schlegel. And Schlegel Valley, it was a rough one on Saturday. And so now we're in our post-mortem period. And we'll try to get you through this, folks. There's a lot of experience, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of things going on. You know, we know no one wanted to win this game more than the guys who are playing in it. Like it's huge for them. And you could see the passion, you could see it all come through. Unfortunately, they lost to Michigan 13-10, a game that was interesting. And we'll get into all the aspects of it. Offense, maybe some stubbornness there, kicking inefficiencies, in-game environment was the window factor, all these different things that we'll look at as well. And try to go through that. And then throughout the week, of course, we will unpack everything, and then understanding it too, that in this new era of college football where a loss does not cripple you, despite the fact it might be devastating to your rival if you're Ohio State, that tomorrow you're going to figure out where you stand in the college football playoff. You are getting in. You will play one more game at minimum. There's a decent chance that game could be at Ohio Stadium. So you have that also as well to look forward to. And so there's all these different things, all these different emotions. We're 48 hours out. People have talked about, firing Ryan Day. Do you wait till after I heard someone say, Schlegs, even if they win a national championship, go ahead and fire him, which I thought was a little bit crazy. But
that could be crazy. That could be crazy. That's pretty bumpy, but I understand the sentiment.
Yeah, no, so people are I'll never tell anybody how to feel. Okay. I mean, they go through their unique grieving process. There's people that care a whole heck of a lot, and you want to see this team win, and it matters immensely to them. It's mattered to their family. It's mattered to their parents. All these things have mattered a ton. And so I'm never going to sit here and tell someone how to feel. I also never really like to call for jobs because I don't know if that's productive. And I also don't like to.
I've been in those jobs, Bob. Like, that's the hardest thing for me, right? Like, I mean, guys, if you want to talk about it, I've lived there. I've been there. I've done that. I moved my entire family somewhere. Oh, that's part of your business. Yeah, it is part of my business. But, like,
that doesn't make it easier.
Doesn't make it easier. So I will never 100% ever say that.
So, there's elements of that. If people want to feel that way, okay. Like, I also want to acknowledge, like, it's lost and it's 4 straight, and it's devastating. However, this new era of college football, like, the movie isn't over yet. The story isn't done. Okay. If they would have stopped Rocky and, the 8th round and Apollo gets the decision, then that sucks. Like, it's not a good movie. So we'll see how this movie ultimately plays out. But off the jump, Schlegs, like, you watch this thing. I was at the game. I called it I was on the call for the radio with Learfield, with Jim and with Jim Lachey and Paul Keels and Skip Mossick, and was blessed to be a part of that. Outside of the ending, Mrs. Lincoln, the play was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I'm glad it was fun getting the chance to do that with those guys, but just a tough loss. So when you look at this, Schlegs, watching this thing at home, you watched it with your family, and you consumed it in that way. What are your initial thoughts kind of just off the top as we begin to dive into this and some of these different sequences and everything that happened?
Well, I mean, it was very difficult, Bob, watching it because, one, I've been around the guys for a long time. I believe in the guys. I believe in the coaching staff. I believe in how much they wanted to win that game. It's not like I believe in that they did everything. And I go back and look at the offseason and the things that we did with Tress and the things that we did with Urban and all of the small details of like how important this game was. I've been there and I saw it, and I saw the guys and I saw their preparation week in and week out, even after the loss of Oregon, just like how they went about handling their business and the way they beat Penn State and the way they beat Indiana. And then going into this game, I did not see this outcome because of what I have seen, right? I predicted 31-13, Michigan having 13. Michigan did everything that they needed to do to get the 13, which is exactly what we talk about, keeping it close. We said, Bob, you and I said they had to shorten the game, regardless of what Ohio State does. Field goals keep you in it. Touchdowns take you out of it, and the explosive plays both ways. they did all of those things. And in doing so, then you look at the defensive performance. And again, you and I are defensive guys. You had 235 yards that you gave up. The only other time Ohio State has ever lost a game with under 250 on defense was you and me versus Penn State in 2005 with AJ and the boys, right? That was 17-10. That was super bumpy. One of the greatest losses that I had in my entire career, and you always remember the losses. The thing I take away from this at the end, and I had a pit in my stomach, was for those guys.
Yeah.
How hard they played. And everybody can say whatever they wanted to say, and we will talk about the game plan, and we will talk about the things that they did. But that, to me, was my biggest takeaway at the end, knowing that these guys came back for this moment. And in these type of games, great players have to make big plays in these games. We didn't make enough, and you can literally whittle it down to 5. And that's the ball game in a completely different manner. In a weekend of rivalries where you had Georgia Tech took Georgia on the road to 8 overtimes, right? You had Michigan 6-5 coming in here, right, with what they have done the entire year on offense to be able to do what they did defensively. It was hurtful. I felt bad for the dudes, number one. But besides all the other stuff that transpired, I just felt bad for the dudes. That's my take. There was opportunities in this, Bob. And I mean, hell, I'll go through them, guys. I have notes. I should just share these, right? But like that missed field goal, 7-3, that was a big one, right? There was that miss, Carnell Tate. That was a low snap. It's 3rd and 7, right? Carnell normally makes that play, right? Just missed that play, right? Then when you miss a 38-yard field goal, right? Then you get a huge stop. I was like, man, we got to get a huge stop. Caleb probably should have caught that punt, right? Let it roll down. Then
so here's the thing, and this is what kind of got Ohio State a little bit.
Which is the win. Yeah.
So there's the wind element, and the wind was blowing a little harder up high. Now, Michigan dealt with it. It's the same for both. They handled it better, obviously, than Ohio State did. You start talking about the wind and the kicking game, and we'll get there. Trey comes out at halftime, went into the wind, bounces short, get the ball at the 6-yard line. Caleb, as opposed to you lost about 20 yards of field position. And so people don't look at it like, it's not that big of a deal. It is. The hidden yardage, those inches that you need, they're everywhere. The yards are everywhere. And you can't, and Tress said, on the show with us last week, 1 yard is worth 2, 5 is worth 10. And so you let a punt hit and you give up another 15 to 20 yards after the bounce because, maybe you lost it in the sun a little bit. And then also that wind pushed it higher and farther than maybe you thought it was going to go. And so those are critical yards that you ultimately gave up that unfortunately you weren't there. And, Lathan talked last week about the hidden yardage in the games, getting those stops, in the special teams and all those different elements. Remember, Sykes, when we were there, we used to have what was the hidden yardage meter, and those were punt returns. It was like
we did
blocked punts, because that's where you get your possessions and you're able to start. And so that never factors in. Like you can't ever factor in like a blocked punt into yardage, or like the return yardage doesn't go into total game yardage, or even just fielding every punt and where you get those yardage, or if you're able to pin someone deep and you don't get the touchback, they get on the 4 as opposed to the 20, and like how that ultimately plays out. So that hidden yardage, that's everywhere. Continue.
And that's where you brought up that great point, Bob, because that transpired, right? But then what did that lead into? Well, it was a 3rd and 8. Literally the next line in my note says, got to get the ball to your best dudes. That's what I put on there, right? Then you went out and you had a 31-yard punt. Again, whether it's into the wind or not, it was. Michigan's now playing on a short field, right? What do? Defense does a great job. Caleb did a great job. They ran that jet sweep. Boom, he comes up, reads it, 54-yard field goal. And we talked like at the very beginning, right? Like special teams win, like every possession matters. Michigan's thing, hold them to field goals, right? Win in the red zone. They did. Like we weren't scoring there when we normally do, whether it was the interception or whether it was, a draw play, which that draw play would have hit should the guard block his guy. Like it was there, right? But again, that goes back into winning the one-on-ones, the game of inches that you talk about. All of that is magnified in this type of game. Now Michigan goes up 10-3, and then boom, I'm like, dude, we're rolling, right? We come out, we talk about you got to win that middle 8 all the time, and you drive, you have tempo, you're hitting dudes, like you're creating 1st and 2nd down, like you're winning 1st and 2nd down through the pass. and like we're just hitting guys. And then guess what? We go up top. We get a PI. It's like, boom, we went up top again. We got a PI. That wasn't necessarily that drive, but that did happen. Like, why did we negate that? But it was like when we had that tempo, when we got into that rhythm, when we scored that touchdown, man, I was like, okay, when they come out, this is just my feelings. I was like, when they come out in the second half, we're going to have an adjustment dialed up, and we're like, boom, game over. Because I was like, my prediction is correct. We already got the 3 that I needed. I just need 3 more touchdowns, and I wanted 31-13 on the board, and it just didn't transpire that way.
Yeah, and you had it, and you felt like you did. And there's a number of plays that you look at, Schlegs. You always talk about, that we talked about the hidden yardage and how big that ultimately is. Then you start talking about plays, and we'll talk a little bit about offense. We'll talk about the offensive game plan too, and how that kind of hits and where that was going with everything. Because there were just some things that were a little bit questionable. Before we get going, I thought the environment, though, in the stadium was, especially first half, 10 out of 10. I mean, it was great. The fourth quarter, Ohio State didn't have the ball very much, and Michigan converted, I think, 4 straight third downs. And so it got a little quiet and got a little squirrely. But you could see the emotion that the guys were playing with. I think the fans were feeding off of that emotion. They're going back and forth. And so I thought you had an environment, Schlegs, that was worthy of this Ohio State-Michigan game and everything that it represents and everything that you ultimately want it to be. So I think the environment checked that box. I think the players, the emotion, the passion that they were playing with, it checked that box. And so those are some of the positives that you take away. That the defense played relentless. And they stopped a touchdown. They gave up the 2 scoring drives, I think had a total of 6 total yards, Schlegs, 1 touchdown and the 1 field goal. Like, you give them an inch and they defend it. The final scoring drive, well, we'll get into that and we'll break that down a little bit more, because that was not something that, I think that they were ultra proud of and how that ultimately went down. So that's something that does need to be addressed, and they do need to get fixed as well. And it's something that kind of felt a little bit like last year. And my goodness, it was a feeling that you had in the pit of your stomach, and it was not great to say it all. But there were 5 plays that I diagnosed that I think, Schlegs, happened, and they weren't necessarily the biggest plays in the game, but I think they had a huge outcome in the game. We'll get to those after this. I want to tell you about X-Sport. Attention, parents and athletes. Protect what matters most with X-Sport mouth guards. Trusted by professional athletes. Designed by NHL team dentists. X-Sport mouth guards are scientifically tested to absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. X-Sport mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including patented use of carbon fiber to custom fit right to your 3D printed right to your grill. So they're going to feel great for better protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication. Focus on the game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today. Save 15% on your order. X-Sport, protect what matters most. 5 big ones from me coming up next.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like... I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, Schlegs. I think there were 3 critical plays in this game. At least it's or 5. 5 rather, at least as I saw. And like some of them, like inconsequential. It looks like at first, but we start talking about the hidden yardage and just getting bled and putting. Sometimes it's not that play, but it's what would have set you up for potentially like that next third down and how that's going to look, or that next play. Like coming out at half, you got all the momentum in the world. You just went down and scored. You're feeling good. Ohio State's getting the ball, dominating the middle eight. We talked about it. Trey Henderson, who I love Trey to death, and he hadn't been returning kicks. They put him in. He's on the south side. It's going into the wind. You watch that kick die on him. They don't field it cleanly. And so Schlegels, you get the ball at the 6-yard line. On that drive, you drive it to the 38. If you're able to fair catch it, then you ultimately get the 25. So that's about 20 yards you gave up. Instead of the 38, you drove to the 18. Now, I understand it's not a yard-for-yard comparison, and there's different things that happen within the flow of the game. I get all that, and I know that that's real. However, it's like 20 yards that you gave up on a drive where you're punting from the 38. You would have been in a much better situation if you were 10 more yards ahead, 20 more yards ahead, and you would have probably been able to flip the field a little better or maybe kick a field goal. Who knows how that would have looked, but there would have been that option. So that's one play. Another play of consequence, you got Alex Orji in there. He's running the ball.
Yep.
And you've got him bottled up. You feel pretty good about it. He gets to the perimeter. Sonny comes to squeeze it, boxes the blitzer or boxes the puller, and just it gets outside. It's 26, 27-yard gain. It doesn't seem like hugely of consequence because it's not a touchdown, but it's a chunk play. And for a team that can't move the ball, those chunk plays matter a lot. Then you go ultimately to another time when Alex Orji comes in. They'd run it with him once. They'd run it with him twice. One time you stuff them, another time they get out, and you're thinking, Schlegs, seems about time like they might try to throw a ball when Orji's in there. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know what he's going to do. They run a reverse pass. It's coming back to Denzel Burke. Tries to go edge it up. He's thinking that. They run a stock and go with the receiver. You see him get a late jump. The ball is underthrown immensely because but you get PI. So that's essentially a chunk play. And that gets you down inside. And you know what? You get to take a shot and then it puts you in position, I believe, for that field goal, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's not a great situation. And then either way, like it's just bleeding yards. It's bleeding time. And, it puts you in a bad spot. Khalil Mullings, the one where you get out at the end. You feel like you've got him, Schlegs. You've got him bottled up. It's a situation where, hey, it's 3rd and 6. You stop him. You're getting the ball back with 4.5 minutes. You can have a full drive, do whatever you want. You got all your timeouts. And you just come off the field after the Jack Sawyer interception. It was a 15-play drive, I believe, before that. Yes. 15-play drive before the interception in the end zone. Defense is gassed. They come back out because you go 3 and out. Ultimately, you got to drive. Then you slide off that tackle. He picks up another 26, 27 yards. That's their other big explosive. Those are their explosives in the game right there on defense. And so I have, some of these are defensive plays. Some are special teams with Caleb, 3 defensive plays because they're probably the only 3 that you really would want back on defense. And then
we had that one boundary pass where Warren was going over rolling to his right to hit the wide receiver for, I believe, like 18 on the 3rd down and long. But it was 3rd and long, right? To get off the field.
But you're going to give up. I mean, you give up one chunk pass. That stuff happens. And he got out of the pocket. Yeah. And he got it. They ran a chase game, I think. Jack came under and JT was coming around the top. And yeah, they lost contained. Yes. He got him on the sideline. And that's probably another. That might be the 6th because there's always like 4 to 6 plays a game. And it's not always the interception, everything else, but you get off the field and you get the ball back. But the play before Ohio State, in between the interception and the field goal at the end of the game, Ohio State had the ball. They went 3 and out. He ran it with Quinshawn, picked up 5. And so now you're sitting in a 2nd and 5. And Schlegels, you hadn't got a first down, I want to say, since the 3rd quarter at that point. Like you were in a bad spot. Like you really hadn't been moving the ball all that much. You had the missed field goal, obviously, before that, and then Michigan dominated the clock, and you had an interception the previous series. So it'd been a minute since you got the chains moving. So you're 2nd and 5. Will breaks contain, gets outside, and doesn't throw a perfect ball. It's a little bit like on the hip, like behind Carnell Tate a little bit. And listen, Carnell Tate was the leading receiver. Did a lot of things really well in this game. And I know it's something he probably thinks about. It's like, hey, when we get it back, if he catches that ball, falls down, it's a first down. Okay. You catch that ball, you turn up, it's probably another 10 yards. Now you're to the 40 and you got something cooking a little bit, or maybe 35. Instead, you drop it, it's 3rd and 5. And then the next play is when Will has to scramble and gets to the 4th and 1, and there's 6 minutes to go. And you always talk about being aggressive. Okay. And there's a lot of people that want to, you can go for it. I'm like, I don't know. If you don't get it, you're on your own 19, Schlegs, 4th and 1. You're giving them a for sure field goal if you do not convert that. So that's a rough situation. So you punt away and you never get it back. But I look at, like, if you catch that ball, all of a sudden you get some more yards. Maybe you flip the field, you buy yourself time. They can't at least drive down and score. You give your defense some rest. They can sit over there and have another cup of water, relax a little bit more, get some juice back, and get going. But as I looked at it, Schlegs, those were kind of the 5 plays. And maybe if you throw that 6 in over on the side, yes, there's a little bit of defense. There's some other stuff on offense. We could talk about that draw and, like, you've got everybody blocked up. I mean, everything. But, like, those are some of the ones that I thought, like, under the radar. It's not the interception. It's not the turnover. It's not, big stuff. It's ones that cost you possession. It cost you a yard. And it maybe was the play even before the 3rd, but one that probably should have been made.
Yeah, well, you just unpacked a lot there, Bob. I'm not even going to go to the end of the game, but I'm going to go back to that one because what you said was on that drop by Carnell, do you go for it, do you not? But, like, you also couldn't flip the field because you had a short punt. Michigan gets the ball on the 40-yard line with 6:15 to go in the game, 10-10. Right? Short, and I literally put this, short field, have a great kicker, and the wind.
Yep.
Go Bucks. Right? Like, that's what I wrote down in my notes. Right? And then you had that, 3rd and 6, massive 3rd down run, had him bottled up, could have had a holding call too on Jack on that play. Guess what? Didn't make the play, right? So 1st and 10, 3rd run, 2-minute timeout, all those different things. But I go back to our red zone offense. Right? You had a slant to Emeka on a 3rd and 5. You had a draw play that could have been there if we didn't get it. Like, those are the things when you're in the red zone, right? Like, listen, man, the missed field goals were critical in this game. You're up 6. It completely changes the dynamic, especially when you got a defense that went out there, held them. Yeah, you're backed up, and then you throw that pick. They got to go back out there. Again, defense doing what they got to do, goal line stand. This is not an offense, defense, special teams. What you need in the game is a complete game. And we didn't get a complete game. I think you got a really, really good game by our defense, 100%. A really, really good game. For us to have won it, they would have had to play the greatest game that they played all season, right? And I would have said it would have been that outside of 3 plays, and that was the 2 long runs and the 1 long 3rd down. But
So right
Michigan, that's it. So, yeah, 3. But, again, that's what everybody that's out there, how we are looking at this in this game, you never know when those plays are going to happen. That's why everything you do throughout the year matters. That's why toes on the back edge of the line matter. Like, I don't know. It does matter, man, because in those moments, did I come up and did I hit with my outside arm free, or did I turn my shoulder and let somebody go around? It's just the small things. Did I collapse, or did I he's going to get it, I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to wrap up and take a good angle? Like, all of it matters because in the game, defensively, it came down to 3 plays. The 3rd down and the 2 long runs that set you up not because they scored. They didn't score on the Orgy one.
No.
They didn't score on that one, but it chewed up more clock. It went into exactly what Michigan had to do to win this game, and that was sustain drives. And a lot of the times earlier on in the game, they weren't winning 1st and 2nd down. You were at 3rd and 6, 3rd and 5. We were winning 1st and 2nd down. Toward the end, they started creeping up and getting 4 or 5 on 1st down, maybe 1 or 2, but it was 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. You're in 3rd and short as opposed to 3rd and medium. But 3 plays came down defensively. Hats off to Caleb, great pick. Hats off to Jack, great pick. Like, I got that pick I jumped up. I'm like looking at, I'm like, this is happening right now.
Yeah.
I see it flip. I got the guy who came back from Central Ohio, just made the play of his career in the game. We're going down. And it didn't happen. And that's kind of what it seemed like offensively throughout. The best tempo we had was in that 2-minute drill, right? We weren't substituting people, and we were hitting people with the pass. I mean, like, boom, 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 PI, boom, boom. Like, that's what we're doing. And sometimes, guys, you got to take an audible. Like, hey, you know what? We know that 22 times in 22 years, the team that's rushed it are winning this game. The part of the runs that were working, there was a great run, man. Trey had a really one. We were in that T, fourth and short, boom. They thought, tush push, boom. Trey or Q around the left side, right? Boom. They ran an inside puller, right? I think it was the center or the guard, climbed up to a linebacker. I think G or Will came back, kicked, boom. Guy was downhill. It's just that displacement that you get in gap scheme and pullers that allowed some of those to hit. Which that's what you got to do when you got dudes that can just beat one-on-one in zone and slip through. Like, that's what you kind of got to do. We never got off of that and went to some of the things of, like, getting your best guys the ball. And I'll say this, too. I totally get why. I think some people are like, why would they just stay with it? Guys, when you have a team that's, like, literally chewing up the clock like this, nickel and diming your defense, you're like, man, I got to go do something to give them a blow. I can't just go slinging around and get a 3 and out. Like, there's a fine line, and that goes back into your hidden yardage, Bob, because there's a difference between Michigan starting with the ball in the 40 or the 47 or a short field and being able to flip that, because your defense now has had a little time because you've been able to sustain a drive, and you flip it down there, which we did. You punt it down. They down it on the third or fourth. Ballard did a nice job on that. You get the field back on a short field, you got to punch it in. So to me, it was just the missed opportunities in the red zone, again, in areas that we've been great in all year. We weren't great in the game, and that's the only game that matters at the time. Now, side nugget, we'll talk about it later. What do you have moving forward?
Yeah, and we'll get to all that. There's a lot there, Schlegs. 7 for 14, Michigan on third down, Ohio State for 6 for 16. You need to be better. You weren't bad. Wasn't bad at all. You're in the 40s. Michigan's sitting at 50%. Like, the inability to get off the field at the end of the game for the defense. And that's something, Schlegs, that is the exact same thing that kind of happened last year. Bled the clock down, kicked the field goal, and you didn't have enough time to ultimately go back and score. We've talked about winning the rushing battle a lot. Tress brought that up. I want to get into that a little bit more and what that looks like, and the importance of it. But there's different ways to ultimately get to it. And I think that it matters that you win that. I don't know if it's correlated as strongly now. I think Ohio State had other ways to get it done, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, we'll dive in there. And I also want to bring in our producer, Pat, because as watching the game, Schley, I'm always curious what other people think, like their emotions, what their thought process is as they're breaking it down. Because I'm like, it's not right. It's just what you feel. It's what it is. And you're allowed to feel however you want today. And I completely get that. So we got more coming up with that here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and I want to bring in our guy, Mr. Pat Schlegs. He's always in the back,
Come on in, Pat.
doing all the work. I want to get kind of his thoughts as he was watching the game, how he thought, what he felt like. Confident at any point, like nervous, like where were we at, Pat, watching this game?
Yeah, honestly, guys, I felt confident the whole time. It wasn't until really that last short drive that the Buckeyes had in the fourth quarter that I felt any anxiety really. I don't know, just maybe it was the confidence in the talent that they had, confidence in the scheme, but at no point did I really feel like they lost that game until the final, triple zeros, which was kind of shocking to me. Um, Michigan gets up early. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, they'll cover whatever, they'll cover the 19 and a half, whatever it was, but it just never seemed to come. When the field goals hit, there was a little bit of anxiety there. You could feel among the fans and everything that way. But other than that, I didn't really feel like any anxiety up until probably the fourth quarter.
So were you with Pat, other people? Like, were you with the group watching this game? And like with the missed field goals, what was said?
Yeah, we were with a bigger group. We were watching it at a bar here in Cleveland by our studio, but it had feelings of the college football playoff game that they missed right as New Year's. New Year's came down or whatever.
Oh, the Peach Bowl against Georgia.
Oh yeah, exactly. So it was difficult that way. Like, knowing that he missed the field goal was not great. I still had confidence in the second kick too. I didn't think we would miss two by any means.
Hey, Pat, what do you think about, not being able to run the football and continuing to run the football? And were you like in there at some point, like, hey, we got to do something different? Or is it like, no, I'm good. Like, I just feel like it's just going to come out and it's going to happen.
Yeah, I thought that way too. Like, I knew just from this show, like talking with John on what was that, Friday, that defensive line from Michigan is the real deal for sure. But I would have thought that they would have actually spammed going to wide receiver Jeremiah Smith more. That kind of shocked me that Chip didn't really necessarily seem to go to your guys that you would want to touch the ball more. I think he had a good game, Jeremiah did, but running the ball, I thought Travion was pretty good. I mean, Quinshon on that wing tee was at 4th and 1. I mean,
Yeah.
it looked really good. I didn't think we got punked by any means, but we just didn't move the ball the way I was anticipating.
So it's a good point. I'm glad you went there with that. We started talking about the run game, and we had Jansen on to talk about it. And Michigan's strength, their two best players. I can pull up my boards here, Schlegs, and show you what they look like. I mean, we talked about it last week. Their two best players, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, inside. I mean, they are both guys who are juniors who are going to be draftable players, very high-level draftable players, probably first-rounders. Maybe one of them goes in the second. But, I mean, they have accolades on accolades, and they're very, very talented. And, heck, you start looking at it, I mean, preseason first-team All-American, second-team All-Big Ten last year, Bednarik Outland watch list for both of them. Like, Mason Graham was a heavyweight wrestling champ in the state of California. I don't know how great their wrestling is out there, Schlegs, but like obviously the dude's no slouch. And so the problem is Ohio State, where all their issues were. You took Carson Hinsman, he went in for Seth McLaughlin. He'd been playing, because they kicked Donovan Jackson out to tackle. So and then you had Tegra Shabola in. And I thought Austin and Carson played pretty well. Servo and Hinsman did okay. Now Hinsman got walked back a couple of times by Grant, and some of his snaps weren't great.
Yes.
And it's like going down and having to look up with everything that was going on. Like that's tough, and trying to identify that, because when you look down, then you've got to look back up after grabbing the ball, and it's tough on Will. And they were getting pressure in his face, and I don't think Tegra played very well at all at the right guard position, and Mason Graham, especially on that draw, like you're getting at least 6-7 yards, maybe 8 to 10. I don't know, on that final draw on 3rd and 10 before the missed field goal after Caleb's interception. And Mason Graham's the only guy there, and he makes the play because they didn't get a hand on him. And Tegra's got to be better than that. And he's played really the entirety of the year, and like you got to be able to fight with all of that. And so when you talk about running the football, so the team that won this game, I'm guessing, Schlegs, if you go back probably 50 years, it's probably about a 90% correlation. The team that runs the ball wins it. I've never done it. We know over the last 20, like that's held true. So a lot of times you think like go out and you just got to establish the run. Well, when we talked to Tress a little bit, he talked about, sometimes you run the ball to be able to have those explosive plays. And it seemed like, hey, maybe this Ohio State team, the way that they win the rushing battle in this game, and it's you throw the ball a little bit. You watch them start the game, bingo, bango, bongo, get down there, the red zone, then they kick a field goal. The one drive 2 minutes before they score, they're spreading out quick. And when they go tempo, that also wears out the D-line. It slows them down.
Yeah.
And so there's a multiple things that it does. It slows down the pass rush. They're not as great as against the run, all those things. So it does that. But then also, Schlegs, if you're able to score in passing, they'll have to start loosening up. And if you can get a lead, it can drive the other team out of running the football. And that's one of the other things that I think is probably undersold, is the fact that if they were able to get that to get a 10-point lead at some point, and you're throwing the ball with effectiveness, Michigan's going to continue to have to loosen up, and you would be able to run the ball more, and they would probably have to get out of running the ball as much. And you were never able to do that. And I think largely it's because there was this emphasis of just running into the teeth of that defense, which the option work, some of the stuff on the perimeter, but it was pretty evident probably by the second quarter. And I know you don't want to abandon it completely, but running the ball in between the tackles was going to be difficult, to say the least.
The things that worked inside the tackles were the gap scheme and the pullers, right? The option into the boundary, the wing tee on the perimeter. And I'll say this too. How do you spread out a defense, Bob? You spread it out through formation.
Yeah.
Right? When you condense and you bunch, what does it do? It brings hats into the box, right? People that can make plays, one-on-one blocks. If you expand that, right? Again, you're creating pace, space, and angles. So all those different things are to your advantage when they have to go out there and play that. And so their job was, hey, man, we can affect the quarterback with forward, which they did. Again, you look, and somebody put it out there like the grading of the offensive line was all under 58%. I can understand that from the running perspective for sure. But they had no sacks in this game. We didn't really spread it out. We had a couple of like long developing plays and again, a veteran defense missing their number one corner, right? Attack that, right? We go back, and I think that's what Tress was alluding to when we did, on our interview, and even talking to him when we were doing that podcast about it's all about the team. You got to know where they're weak, and you got to exploit their weaknesses, even if it doesn't go into the fact of what the numbers say wins it right now. Attack their weaknesses. Their weakness was their secondary. Our strength is probably our passing game. I would say that when you have three guys that could potentially be first-round draft picks, right? So how do we get them the ball? How do we do the clear outs? How do we expand, move them outside of the box, and then open up? And then of those runs, what are the runs that are working? The slow developing plays like that worked against an Indiana, right? Or a lesser opponent like the throwback. These guys' eye discipline, man, was on point. Again, everything's heightened in this game.
Yeah.
The throwback to G, that wasn't happening. They've already seen that on tape. Hey, that guy, I can't lose him because he's going to drift back. Boom, I'm on him. Or the slow developing, like tight end screen, ain't going to work in this because the dudes are flying around. It's just the game. But your guys, Jeremiah, being able to drive through and run a go route to clear it out for a Mecca on an outside, on an outside pass, that does work, right? Carnell had the same thing. He just needs to make that catch. We also didn't attack that inner part, right, of the thing. I think we did one. A Mecca had a long over route when Will rode out. That was nice, man. That was, you're going to do a slow developing play in a play, somebody that's doing zone, like that's the one that's going to have to hit. But we just went there and then we didn't go back. And I think that was some of the things, to your point, of if what you think isn't working, and why I was so confident being 10-10 with the drive that we had to end the second half. I'm like, bro, get ready. I can see Michigan getting 3 more points, because if you can do that, sustain drives, score some points, even kick some field goals, probably not even going to go back to your kicker at that point, but we're going to go try to score some touchdowns and be more aggressive there. There's no way on this defense that if you give them 10 points, they ain't winning this game, just because I know the dudes that are on it.
Yeah, give them an inch and they'll defend it. That's what they talked about. We'll keep diving into this. We got some more. We got some headlines, though, coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool and doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, so we got our headlines here on the Bobby Carpenter Show, and so despite a loss, and the AP poll was released tomorrow night, we'll have college football playoff rankings.
I cannot wait to see that
with Bill Bender. I'm curious to see where everything's going to be, but we can throw up this AP top 25 poll. Ohio State falls from 2 to 7. Top 8 teams, depending on how it breaks out, because you obviously have conference champs in there as well, and Notre Dame, but they're going to get home games. So there's a pretty good chance that Ohio State will end up getting a home game. I don't know if it's certain. I don't know if it's guaranteed, but I think that there's a pretty good spot. They're going to get in the playoffs. They still have the third best odds, Schleiks, to win the national championship.
I know. It's crazy, right? Everybody, like, today, and listen, I love the emotion. Like, I totally get it. My hardest thing with that, whether you're showing right there, is Tennessee being ahead of Ohio State.
Well, and that's in the AP.
Tennessee, well, the coaches are behind in the coaches as well. But if you look at, I just want to throw this out there: Tennessee, Chattanooga, North Carolina State, Kent State, OU, Florida, overtime, Alabama. Your one big win, Alabama. 9-3, Alabama. By the way, UK, right? Mississippi State, UTEP, and Vandy. Okay, you lost to Arkansas and you lost to Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. So unranked team, right? You lost to them, and you lost to a 10-2 Georgia team. Okay. But then with us, our losses came by 4 points to your rival, to the number one team in the country. I just take that. I'm like, how are you behind them? That's my only question. So again, I'm just looking at Tennessee, Ohio State, because right now everybody's projecting Ohio State on the road to Tennessee. At Tennessee, I think it should be inverted, right, and be here. But I just want to throw that nugget.
And there's a good chance that might be the case. Keep in mind, this stat's pretty remarkable. Schleiks, I want to say AP or top 5 teams, whether it's the AP or CFP this year, have lost 5 times to unranked opponents this season. 5 times to unranked opponents. Top 10 teams have lost 12 times this year to unranked opponents. So, there's no great teams. You can start comparing resumes. They're going to do what they want to do. We'll see what ultimately happens. All right, Schleiks, you alluded to this. This Buckeye defense was really good. Last time that they gave up less than 250 yards and only lost one other time, it was when we were playing 2005 against Penn State, and it was a similar situation. They gave up 17 points, but they were in the red zone. They had turnovers. Gave up 200. Yeah, it's nightmares.
Well, I remember this game, Bob. Like, if there was one game, if there was one loss, the Texas loss was crippling, but it was early in the year.
Yeah.
This one was later in the year. And I think if we win this game, we go on to potentially be maybe a rematch. I forget if USC lost that year or not.
No, they didn't. Both were undefeated.
Never mind. We wouldn't have got in. But that being said, that game, guys, they scored on us. One, they returned a fumble back to the 2. They scored. They took a pick 6 to the house. And then they returned the first kickoff of the opening half down, and they kicked the field goal. And then we 3-and-out of them the rest of the entire second half. It was but you know what though? Here's the deal. As a defense, and this is what I love about our guy. When people say whatever they want to say, and I totally get it. Totally get it. Like you said, Bob, I'm not going to tell you how you feel. I know the feeling. You know the feeling, right? All
Yeah.
the teams we play with know the feeling. And the feeling was this. The feeling was not, hey, offense, get your, whatever together. Or it was not like point fingers. Here was the mentality. Guess what? Another opportunity to go win it. Another opportunity to go win it. Another opportunity to go play. Another opportunity to have a party at the ball. That's your mindset. So regardless of what transpired in this game, which is meaningful, it's impactful, it will be with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I tell you this right now, guys, like, get it real. These guys will hurt for a very, very long time.
Oh, it's always there. It'll be omnipresent. And then finally,
They
Schleich,
did it though, man. But I got it. So I'm trusting the resiliency. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, we got one more I want to get to because then we're going to bring Pat back in for our tailgate talk today. Ross Bjork, Ohio State athletic director, came out Sunday night, given his endorsement. Ryan Day is going to remain the head coach of Ohio State. People are talking about potentially firing him this week, having an interim coach in the playoffs, which I'm not going to, this is part of the story, but I'm not going to judge the movie until I see the ending and how it ultimately looks. It's unacceptable. They've got to win. They've lost 4 straight times. I think everybody knows that. Like, that's not, and like I said, if people are mad, they want Ryan fired. Okay, you're allowed to feel however you ultimately want to do. It's not, there's no advantage to doing it now. This team still has things that they can play for. They've got recruiting class this week. You need to make sure that you've got that iced up. Like, everything is still in a good spot outside of this thinking game. All right, coming up, we've got our tailgate talk brought to you by Real Truck. Bring back Pat for some Ryan Day questioning.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, we've got tailgate talk brought to you by Real Truck. Listen, from today until Sunday, December 8th, from Monday, December 2nd, it's Cyber Week at Real Truck, and they're offering savings up to 50% on select steps, running boards, truck bed covers, and accessories now through the end of this week. That is Sunday, the 8th. Visit realtruck.com/specials to learn about the incredible gift giving deals to bring to your truck or your family or friends. It can be for you or whoever. So don't forget the promo code Bobby still in there for you to get the free hat if you spend more than $100 at checkout. Now is the time to save big this holiday season. Go to realtruck.com/specials and get up to 50% off now through December 8th. All right. Bring back in producer Pat. Pat, what are your thoughts now? You saw Ross gave the endorsement of Ryan here. Obviously they always evaluate everything, but I couldn't imagine them making a move or anything prior to the playoff. What are your kind of thoughts on Ryan and what all happened, where he's at?
Yeah, the fan perspective is all over the board right now. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys that. It's a little different being up here in Cleveland, not right in the heart of Buckeye country down in Columbus, but the amount of Mike Vrabel memes that I saw on Saturday was kind of crazy. I don't know why they would really make that change, because in the college football landscape right now, you have to, project confidence the whole time. That's kind of all that matters right now. You need Ryan Day to win these football games. So it's kind of a moot point. If he wins the national championship, then where are you at? I don't know who the replacement would be better. Hartline, maybe, I guess. I wouldn't mind Brian Hartline, but Mike
Hartline's never been a head coach either.
Exactly.
That's the issue with people had it with Ryan. He was an assistant. So Mike Vrabel's not coaching. And listen, I don't want to speak for Mike, but I don't believe Mike really wants to entertain coaching college
in the NFL. There's just no way.
I'll just break it down like this, guys. Here's the recruiting landscape coming from the NFL. And Mike even said it on a podcast. Hey, I'm out there watching my kids play baseball. Oh, hey, coach, I'm in town. I'm making my swing. I'm going to Notre Dame. I'm going to check out Ohio State. You live 30 minutes from Georgia. All right, cool. Now I'm going to leave my kid's game to go show you Ohio Stadium. Hey, check it out. Come be a Buckeye, man. Let's go. We already know you're committed to Georgia, bro. Right? But that's the things you have to do. And he broke it down like this, like draft class, right? Drafting, that's your incoming class. Then you have the portal and your guys, right? Like that's your roster management. And then free agency is the portal, right? So how are you accumulating that money? How are you managing your roster through all those different segments? And there's a fine line about doing it, but it is significantly more extensive than it is in the NFL.
Well, not to mention every one of your guys is a free agent every single year. So like, regardless of what you bring, nobody wants to deal with that. So like, I keep telling folks, I don't want to speak for Mike, but I don't think he's interested in it. Knowing him like Schlegs and I do some, and then listening to what he says and like how he kind of operates right now. If he was interested in this, like I think there'd be people that know him would be more vocal about that. I don't feel that is going to be the case. So like get that out of your mind. And then we can kind of talk and move on from there. What else you got, Pat?
I think there's one thing too. Like, I don't know if you guys saw Mac Brown's last press conference, but at the very end, he said, "This isn't the game that I signed up for." I think that's kind of where Mike Vrabel would be at too, where, like you said, like he's coaching his kids. He's seeing his kids all the time. He doesn't need to be going to make some visit to Athens, Georgia, or whatever, Oregon, like, I don't think it's just not going to be the case.
And first, I'll just say Mike's a pro's pro, right, Bob? You and I know that guy played 17 years in the NFL, man. It's just a different mindset, man. He's a different beast. Some Buck would come back and just run one. Like, he's just crazy, man. He's Mike. He's Raves. He's Raves. That's what you call him. So I would say this too about making Hartline like an interim guy. Like, listen, we don't, it goes back to the major league thing. I guess there's only one thing to do, win the whole effing thing. Like that's the mentality. That's what our mentality should be with the current team. And you want to make sure that those guys have the very best. And I think right now where they are, the very best is Ryan Day and staff, not out, bring you in. You have recruiting classes. You have all these different nuances. It bodes well to say, yeah, he is our guy. Go win the whole effing thing then.
Absolutely. All right. That's it. We got one more segment coming up next.
Sure.
We'll wrap up the show.
Oh.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
All right, Pat, you said back in here. You want to throw something else in? More content?
Yeah, guys. I mean, do you think this is the most down bad Ohio State Buckeyes fans have been in a long time? I'm stealing Schlegs' final thought here, but this is the most down bad I've seen the fan base in a long time. I know I'm only 28 years old, and you guys lived through, all sorts of years. But what do you guys think there?
Yeah, I do think, and we'll get into more in that tomorrow. But I do think that it's tough because you were 20-point favorites, and it goes back. You're too young to remember '96. Like there's an element of this where they were 17-point favorites in '96 and lost a similar type of game, albeit it was maybe a little more big play with one Ty Streaks that cut it to 9-7, and then they ultimately got a couple more field goals, I think, and won 13-9. But it is, and you could see it. Ryan wearing it after the press conference, man. This isn't a situation where it's for lack of caring or lack of effort. That is all there, to say the least.
Yeah, I'll just expand on this. 1969. 96, right? Like those were the worst losses in Ohio State history because of the roster, because of the expectations, right? And I would also add this, because of what Michigan brought into Ohio Stadium. Down their best tight end, down their best cornerback, and 6-5. Put all the summation of that, and you're at home, and this is the outcome. That's why they are the way they are.
That's why it stings the most. All right, stay locked in here. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30.